Yes.
I was just gonna ask if you were gonna record.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Cody.
Oh, Christy, thank you so much, and I appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. I'm Cody. I'm one of the co-founders of an organization called Health Compass. To locate where we are on the map, I am in Rochester, New York. So I'm between Buffalo and Syracuse. It is where the PGA is taking place right now. So I guess besides the PGA and really us here at Health Compass, Rochester and Garbage Plates, Rochester, New York doesn't necessarily have a sports team, et cetera, that's keeping it up there. But Health Compass, this is the name of our organization. To give a little bit of background on us, um, we have just over 530 employer groups. It's a book of business of about 75,000 employees, over 38 states. We have just over about 170 insurance agents that are all in brokerage houses that are under kind of like a contract to bring this to their client groups. To highlight who we are as an organization as well, Health Compass is a 4 Points Incorporated organization. We were named Small Business of the Year through New York State Senate, Small Business of the Year through New York State Assembly, and also Small Business of the Year through Congress in 2021 for our efforts in 2020. So what was nice about that is within that award, as we kind of stretch out that congressional proclamation and read the sentence structure, what was nice about that is that we were recognized not only for what our product is on a tangible standpoint, but for how our product impacted, the communities which businesses serve. So they really truly kind of picked up what we were putting down, right? And then overall, through the course of just having 500 plus businesses, through our testimonials, references, and carriers, we've got municipalities, faith-based organizations, franchises, for-profit organizations, or even some household brands that are doing the program with us on a small or regional or even national scale. To talk about our program at its core, Health Compass is a two-tiered employer wellness plan. Tier 1 is that we are self-insured. Tier 2 is that it's voluntary. When I say that the program is self-insured, all I'm saying is that it's offered within the confines of the organizations that we bring it to. And there's no true self-insured risk, maybe like a self-insured health insurance plan, where some employers may have seen a broker before talk about a health insurance premium from the employees, stop loss, and then maybe a grid from the health insurance company. But it's pretty scary when you got to pay your employees' medical bills, right? There's no self-insured risk. The reason that we have to call it self-insured is because the chassis that we use is payroll. Number two, the benefit is voluntary. As we say that the benefit is voluntary, we mean that the employer doesn't necessarily have to make a blanketed decision that all 100% of employees have to participate in the plan, right? Typically, though, when there is a voluntary benefit, employees that have the option, they typically see about 1 out of 5 employees participate in a voluntary benefit, right? I guess that if we all had everything put together all together, I mean, 1 out of 5 people might buy a cancer insurance policy from us, right? Today for $2 or $3 a week. What we're seeing is about 77% average employee participation in this space. Now, that's a personal statistic for us, knowing that our smallest employer has 3 employees and our largest employer has 5,700, which is a line of casinos up my way this up here. Our program is structured as a WIMPER. WIMPER stands for Wellness Integrated Medical Plan Expense Reimbursement Plan. And ultimately, we aren't the folks that come up with acronyms, we just abide by them. So the folks that did come up with this acronym were our friends over at the CPA Journal. I would proportionalize CPA Journal to a CPA or WebMD to a doctor, but this is essentially going to be the quick reference, how to, tips, tricks, but more specifically strategies if you were an employer group trying to optimize benefits while minimizing costs. Right, so the January 2021 hot topic by the CPA article was the WIMPER strategy. And why is it a hot topic? Well, ultimately, it's the 2 bullets here at the bottom. Number 1, the employer is going to see an average FICA tax savings of actually about $463 a year, $500 for the presentation, $463 a year per employee that participates in the plan. And then also, that employee is going to see about $150 a month now of tax savings that they can use towards supplemental products and see no reduction in their take-home pay. So ultimately, when we talk about these numbers, I always try and bring these numbers to home or how we can impact the community per 100 people. If I brought up my calculator here, at 100 people, at 77% participation of the 100, we're talking about 77 people. I'd like to round down to 70 to get some more square math. So 70 of 100 rather. Those 70 people are going to save that organization $463 a year and 56 cents in FICA. So we would be able to save that organization or those organizations $32,500 a year in FICA over those 70 people. Now, those 70 people for participating in the plan are also going to see $150 a month tax savings that they can spend in benefits. That's $126,000 for the year of added benefits to those staff members. So the way we look at it is if it's 126 to the staff members and 32,500 to the employer, it's a $160,000 impact that we have per 100 employees in a community. So how is that all possible? I guess that we've got some explaining to do. Ultimately, all that's possible because Health Compass is a 105B as in boy, 105B participatory wellness plan. We are using IRS codes that have been around since the 70s. And what's allowed us to use those codes a little bit more eloquently or aggressively with the times, if you will, was the Affordable Care Act. Where if we kind of go back in the time machine here, January 1st of 2014, we saw people get enrolled or start the new age of healthcare or health insurance in America. Things like pre-existing conditions not coming into play when we talk about your premium. Preventive and preventative wellness services are either covered with a small or nominal copay, or seeing your doctor is free or covered for 1 or 2 times for the year. Why all that? At the end of the day, plus access for everybody. The reason for that is because America found out the hard way that American people were a heck of a lot more sick than we thought they were. So for us, what we've done is we've built a plan platform to help employees indulge in incentivized publication 502 or 213D incentivizable healthcare measures. Publication 502 or 213D is in David. So an employee must engage in our plan platform to help support the plan document. That's a fancy way for me to say we have an app. I got an app on the Android and iPhone marketplaces. You can happily download them today. However, you wouldn't be able to use them unless your employer provided this benefit to you as an employee. And our application allows employees the ability to indulge in those wellness activities, all from the comfort of their cell phone. And this application allows employees to indulge in those activities to create 2 key outcomes. Number 1, healthier people today cost the health system less over time. That's pretty much the Affordable Care Act in one sentence. And then number 2, better health outcomes lead to better organizations. At the end of the day, the happier, healthier employee is supposed to produce more widgets, sell more widgets, or service widgets better and faster, right? And hopefully those statistics kind of come into play with a better, healthier workplace culture. But how do we do that? The way that we do that, or how we do that with our wellness plan, is any employee that's enrolled in our wellness plan has to do something. Over the course of a year, an employee must do 4 eligible wellness activities. It is required in the application. And the reason that those 4 wellness activities are so important is because every single wellness activity that's done in our application, it generates CPT or ICD-10 diagnostics code. Meaning that with CPT, there's a bill of services with a licensed and board certified medical professional. In ICD-10 diagnostics, meaning that the employee or the person is under the routine care of a physician. Here's why 4 activities are super important. Health Compass, if you see our logo on the top left, it kind of looks like, well, it's a compass that's halved on its side. But I then start to think of that looking like a sports dome, right? And those are the domes that we place over organizations. We consider those domes an organization's healthcare ecosystem. And within that ecosystem, we start to look at and pivot and look at employees and start to decide or wonder, Do the employees here, do they pollute that ecosystem or do they go green? I'll share with you, if I worked for an organization, I would pollute the ecosystem. At 32 years old, I've been to the doctor once in the last decade. It was after my wife, she had the kids, and she goes, hey, maybe you should go find out if you're going to be here for the long haul because I'm not doing it alone. And like any good man, I went to the doctor, I got the clean bill of health, and I never went back. And I won't go back until I can't stop the bleeding, or a nap and 5 or 6 Tylenol can't stop the pain. But at the end of the day, folks, I think that that's the biggest problem. That's the conundrum that we're in often, is people go to the hospital when it's too late, or seek care from a doctor when it might be too late. So what we're saying is, would American healthcare ecosystem, would a healthcare ecosystem prefer somebody to go to the doctor once a decade like me, or 4 times a year, God forbid, from their cell phone? Number 2 sounds a heck of a lot better. So know that 4 is required, but the employee has unlimited access, not even just for themselves, but anybody in their entire household. We take household healthcare very seriously. So we don't care if it's the live-in in-laws or adult children they can't get rid of, right? Anybody in their whole household can use the application, from a mobile phone, a tablet, or even a 1-800 number. There's about 80 categories that prompt multiple activities somebody can do in our application. I'm just going to highlight very briefly my 5 favorites. First one, health assessment. That's a series of questions based on somebody's, their height, their weight. Do they drink? Do they smoke? Do they work out? Do they eat fruits, nuts, vegetables? At the end of the day, all that information is put into aggregate and algorithm, and that information is then put in front of a physician. That physician then puts together kind of like a healthcare report card for that employee, so they can understand the things they do well and maybe the things that they do not so well. But I'll share with you my results. I am a 32-year-old that's stuck in a 42-year-old's body based off of my health assessment. So needless to say, health decisions that I've made have kind of exponentialized the impact of time on my health. So I'll carry on. Because of that, if I were an employee within that organization, I would have access to things like virtual weight loss and stress management. That'd be dietitians, nutritionists, meal planners, and workout planners, and really accountability coaches to really kind of set and create lifestyle milestones for myself. Do I want to gain 20 pounds? Do I want to lose 20 pounds? And how do I get there? And that brings us to one of the more kind of interactive and cool things about it, the algorithms, the aggregation of data, wellness and lifestyle benefits. I would say that think about your 10 closest friends that have an Apple Watch maybe. And the Apple Watch tells us a couple of things, right? You walk 10,000 steps, and some people go, I have no way of doing that. So imagine Mr. Smith. He still wears the Apple Watch because he always loses his phone. But imagine Mr. Smith syncing his watch to our app. And then a doctor saying, hey, Mr. Smith, congratulations, by the way. I saw you walked 6,000 steps a day in the month of April. I want to challenge you, and I want to let you know, based off of your health assessment, Mr. Smith, if you walk an average of 7,500 steps a day in May, that's an extra 1,500 steps a day. That could be a walk in the backyard or a walk around the block. If you do those extra 1,500 steps a day in May, you will lose between 2 to 3 pounds, and your cholesterol would go down by 10 points. That's the information, folks, that I think a Mr. Smith needs to know. People don't understand the small hinges that swing the big doors in their life. Here's how normal wellness plans work. Whoever can lose 20 pounds the fastest gets a pizza party. So let me put it to you this way. Whoever can lose 10 pounds by next Friday gets $1 million. I know that we all are going to employ the same strategy. Don't eat, right? But you know that if you won this competition with your $1 million, all 11 of us are minimally going to ask you for lunch at Central Maryland Chamber, right? On you. But we're all going to eat like we've never eaten before, and we're all going to gain 12 pounds. That's harder to lose than the 10 we lost by starvation. What I mean is people don't necessarily understand how to become healthier, and we're allowing them to understand it with a program like this. Now, final 2, I'll be brief. Unlimited telemedicine. Men's health, women's health, children's health, ophthalmology, and dermatology are our most commonly claimed on things in our app. But I will highlight, as an extra plus, we've added tele-veterinary services to our app. They don't count towards one of the 4 wellness activities. But I was flying on a plane once and I'm like, there's more animals than humans on this flight. People are taking care of their animals more than they take care of themselves. Let's put televet on there because maybe if they log on to take care of Fluffy, they'll take care of themselves, right? So again, the vet activities don't count as one of the 4, but it's on there. Final one, and I really view this to be one of the most sought after benefits, but least asked for, it's mental health. Stress, anxiety, support, counseling services, all the above is available for the employees within that application. For adults, 24/7, and for children, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our friends on the West Coast to have access. But that provides a little bit more luxury where there's 3 more hours for people like on the East Coast, right? So overall, as an application, as an organization, we've put plenty of resources and development into making sure that this application is a pretty darn good one, right? But with this application, we have an ulterior motive. I'll share with you an example of somebody else who might have an ulterior motive that we can all kind of relate to. It's like Elon Musk with the Teslas, right? I don't know if he may or may not care about, well, if I were to compare, Google can hear everything we're saying, but Elon Musk can see everything we're doing, right? Because there's millions of cars on the road with 8 to 15 cameras on them. But those cameras are there understanding the data on how to automate driving, understand safe driving behaviors. I saw they recently served a crime with a Tesla camera, right? Because the car was parked in the park where something happened, right? We as an organization, we are also interested in the data which makes people healthier. So everything in our application focuses on communication methodology. Our application focuses all communications on 8 behaviors that drive 15 chronic illnesses managed by routine care or prescription drug. The 8 habits: poor diet, physical inactivity, smoking, lack of health screening, poor standard of care, poor stress management, insufficient sleep, and excessive alcohol. Christy, I saw you have a golf tournament on the 19th. I'll be there doing all 8 of those by the 5th hole. What I'm saying is people do these things to have a good time, to relax, to cope, to deal with stress, and all the good moms say a $10 pizza is a heck of a lot cheaper than a dirty kitchen. Right? What I'm saying is it's unfortunate that though all these 8 habits are directly linked to the 15 chronic illnesses you see across the bottom of my screen. That's the problem. Those 15 chronic illnesses account for $4.3 trillion a year of American healthcare spend. So here's the issue. Per 100 people visiting the doctor for those 8 bad habits, it costs $1 million a year to a health plan. United Healthcare, the 4th largest company in the world, just released on a quarterly statement. For every $1 million of health insurance premium they receive, they pay out 1.6. It's crazy, right? 4th largest company in the world is losing money. But anyway, per 100 people, it costs $1 million a year in things that we could lighten up a bit, cut back a bit, start getting moving. It's sad to see that only 7% of people are seeking depression benefits. So I want more there. Obesity accounts for half of this issue. And obesity is clearly followed by hypertension and poor sleep. And it would be remiss of me to say I've yet to see a skinny binge drinker, right? So what we're saying is through the organizations that we work with, we're seeing these costs go down by 3 to 7% every single year, year over year. And for the organizations that we have renewing in years 2, 3, 4, and now even 5, organizations and partners that we work with say, well, hey, what are you guys trying to accomplish with this plan? If we are going down by 3 to 7% year over year, we know that at some point in time, we can never get it to 0. If we got it to 0, that's like Nobel Peace Prize winning stuff. We would have essentially eliminated healthcare costs. But at some point in time, these healthcare costs might plateau, bounce up and down a bit. But using the basis of wellness, we'd be able to understand what's coming or prevent it from happening. What we're seeing is this Health Compass is a predictive healthcare model. That's what we are in terms of the phenomenon in healthcare. So through doing all this stuff and contributing to the healthcare system through a wellness plan, we're using IRS code, right? So this is a Section 125 health-based pre-tax deduction. But everything that we've done is health-based IRS codes. And when an employee uses IRS code 105B properly, that reimbursement is going to show $150 a month of gross tax savings that they can then put towards benefits. $150 a month towards things like life insurance, whole life and term life, accident and hospital plans, disability plans, cancer plans, dental and vision plans, and even in certain states where they're mandating it now, we have partners putting it into long-term care because states are fining for it, like 5.3%, right? So ultimately here, the flow of funds and how this works, I live in Rochester, New York, where payroll was invented. So when I say America runs on Dunkin' in payroll, it's the truth. As long as you get coffee and money, you're good to go. But coffee doesn't taste too good when you're broke, right? So here is essentially the most important bullet in the entire presentation. The program unveils gross tax savings that can be reappropriated to your employee's direct benefit. If we had a body of employees in front of us wondering if they were going to enroll in this benefit or not, it comes down to a very simple multiple choice question. Would you rather A, pay taxes, or B, protect your family? What'd you pick, right? So here's a paycheck example. Now, this is a New York State paycheck example. The person is making $15 an hour, working 40 hours a week, and is indeed paid weekly, okay? So the person is also single one for their allowances and withholdings. So their gross pay is $600. And before the program, this employee did not participate in any Section 125 plan benefits. So her taxable income is now $600. Because of that single one, Uncle Sam and his friends want their cut. Federal, state, Social Security, Medicare taxes are withheld to the tune of $107. You know, in passing in restaurants and bars, they would have said Uncle Sam takes $200 and I take home $400, right? But mathematically, that $107 is what you're paying a payroll company to do, right? Calculate those taxes and remit them properly for us. But ultimately, there's a fifth and final check that's written, and I think it's the most important one, $492 of direct deposit. That is Netflix, car insurance, car payment, a bag of groceries, and a quarter tank of gas, right? But that's essentially where the employee lives their life. That's their take-home pay. More prevalent bills are paid with that. So when we kind of come in with insurance strategies, when somebody's only taking home just under $500 a week to survive, how are they interested in 10, 20, 30, or even $8 a week of insurance, right? They've got to make other ends meet first. We agree. We have to stop blaming people for living paycheck to paycheck. So here's the employee after the program. Number one, you do not have to give the employees a raise in order to make this work, right? Same gross pay. Thanks to payroll. And before I talk about this, I'm going to draw this bucket here. It's a box and it's got a money sign in it. I apologize for all the bad drawings today, but that is your payroll operating account. If you offer any benefits to an employee on a Section 125 plan, cafeteria plan, or just any post-tax benefits, you are collecting premium from your employees, putting it in that bucket, and at the end of the month, you receive a bill and pay a bill with the employee's money. That's the art of payroll deduction, okay? So what our program does is we implement, and please keep this acronym in mind, everyone, SIMMER. We're going to add a pre-tax deduction for a self-insured medical expense reimbursement plan of $184.62. That money is going to go in that bucket I just talked about, like all other pre-tax benefits. So now the employee's taxable income is $415 instead of $600. So Uncle Sam is also not taking $107 from $600. He's now taking $61 from $415. The employee is simply saving $47 a week in what would have been taxes. Now, after all the tax stuff is done, if you can help me for a second, revisit that acronym, self-insured, the money went to the employer. Medical expense, the employee is generating those medical expenses in the application. Reimbursement plan, the employee is actually going to be reimbursed the plan premium. In layman's terms, I've got a pre-tax deduction of $184.62. a non-taxable reimbursement of $184.62, the employee is avoiding the taxes they would have paid on that $184. A lot of times people go, well, hey, Cody, ADP, Paychex, Paylocity, Paycom, Sage, Prism, we work with them all. Cody, I know how payroll works, but how's that reimbursement tax-free? That's my hangup. Well, we used to say, well, hey, we have really expensive attorneys that we can call on and say so. Just let us know when we can get them on a Zoom and let's keep it to under half an hour, right? But instead, let's pull these guys up. I'm sorry to make any business owner on this call flinch today. If I received a letter from these people, I would say a small prayer before I opened it, okay? But the reason that we kind of chuckle about that is because these guys make the rules, but they're not even mafioso about it. If you owe the IRS money, they just take it from you. They can take it out of the equity of your home, right? What is that, right? So at the end of the day, this is the IRS Publication 15, the Employer's Tax Guide for use in 2023. For anybody that's been wondering, where's this been all my life? This has only been in code since 2018. Okay, so on page 17 of the rule book, I have it highlighted now, but it reads, remember CMC? Generally, medical care reimbursements paid for an employee under an employer's CMC are not wages and are not subject to Social Security, Medicare, federal unemployment, or income tax withholding. There it is word for word in the rule book, or the code, if you will, and there's some pinky up ERISA section 125 jargon. You cannot only offer a benefit like this to highly compensated employees. It cannot be a discriminatory benefit. All benefit eligible employees per section 125 document have to look at it, right? That's my like pharmaceutical disclaimers. That's pretty good. But ultimately, because I'll highlight is this is the first time I'm saying America's favorite four-letter F word, free. Because that reimbursement is indeed tax-free, the employee has the ability to pay, instead of $46 a week in taxes, an $18 a week admin fee that goes to Health Compass, us, for all of those member benefits. But what's left over for them of that $47 is about $28 a week to purchase benefits from a benefits broker. If the employer hit submit on that payroll, the employee's take-home pay would be exactly the same as it was before, as it is now after. Now, with having a visual representation of the paycheck on the screen, I'm also opening the chat window if anybody's bashful. I'd love to just pass it over to anybody on the meeting just for a couple of seconds. I'll carry on if not. If anybody has any questions on what we are seeing here on the screen or anything we've covered thus far. And I have the chat open in my other screen, Christy. I haven't seen any messages yet. That must mean I'm doing pretty good, right? The good news is I'm seeing, some shaking heads with everything that I'm, on the it's Big Brother status here. But this slide here essentially highlights how an employee wins. Oh, is there a minimum number of hours that an employee must work to have this benefit? Lauren, wonderful question. Thank you for asking. I just realized I'm not even on camera. Here I am. So, but is there a minimum number of hours that an employee must work to have this type of a benefit? So in terms of minimum number of hours, we have a minimum income standard for this type of Section 125 plan. As long as the employee is making a minimum income standard of $25,000 for the year and federal taxable wages, they should be eligible for the program. Wonderful question. So this slide example is how the employee wins, where the employer wins is essentially on the 7.65%. We know that number, right? You pay taxes on the stuff you buy, then you pay taxes on the stuff they sell for you, then you pay taxes on the stuff that they do for you, then you pay taxes on paying them. Wow, right? So I'm trying to figure out at 7.65% with many of the business owners, would you rather pay 7.65 of 600 or 415? That answer is easy. It's 415. So essentially, where the employee is saving this $13 or so a week in FICA, so will you. So mathematically, before I go there, know that that $184.62 a week is $800 a month of pre-tax valuation we work into the payroll per person that is single. That's the valuation of every single member benefit in our mobile application in our healthcare suite, right? We have a 1.3x valuation that says we put in $11.25 a month if the person's got a family or is head of household or married filing jointly with qualifying allowances. Again, we're saying 1.3 people is what it takes to make a family, right? So in terms of those numbers, because you incorporate that as the employer in pre-tax, you will save $61 a month per person that is single and $86 a month per person that's got a family. Now, for all the tracking, compliance, reporting, communications, hey, I forgot my password, the 48-minute customer service call that was had to help somebody get on their Apple account. I certainly don't want you guys to have to do that, so we will. So all the tracking and all the communications with the employees we take care of. There's an employer admin fee of $35 a month per employee that participates, okay? So if you saved 61, if you saved 86 and spent 35 net, the employer is going to save $26 a month per person that's single and $51 a month per person that's got a family in cash flow. Cash flow is important. This is FICA savings. You don't file for this at the end of the year and hopefully you get it back. This is FICA savings in terms of you can never be maxed out on FICA savings. If you're maxed out on FICA savings, you would have no wages, which means you may not have employees, which means you may not have business, right? So the organization is always going to be able to find savings if an employee participates. So this is cash flow. So over the course of the year, in cash, the employer is going to save $314 per person that's single and $612 per person that's got a family. The average of those two numbers is we can only assume that half of the people are single and half the people have a family is $463.80. And that's the savings to the organization. The final slide of the presentation, and maybe I'll pass it back over to Christy or anybody else in the meeting for any questions or in the chat. The final slide here, kind of a lot of employers through seeing the slide deck think, well, hey, what would my tax savings be? What would my increase in benefits be for my staff? It's particularly easy to get quoted. All we would need to get started is a payroll detail summary. So no matter what the payroll software is, when you hit submit on payroll, whether it's bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or weekly, there's always an option for you to download the payroll summary with details. And we never do, right? We never download it. It's in the software. If I need it, I can go back, right? We suggest that you download it. And if it gives you the opportunity to download it in spreadsheet, that allows our processing team to do it a little faster for you. Okay. A payroll detail summary is all we need to simulate payroll as you run it now and as it will be run in the future. If you like, and then that's what we will show you to the penny what the company will save in taxes and what each employee per person would get in benefits. If you like what you see, fine. If not, that's fine too. But there's some agreements that an organization would sign. We have 10 sheets of paper over 3 documents: a client service agreement, an EFT form, and an addendum A, meaning that if you don't have a Section 125 plan, we make it for you. And if you have one, we amend it with that document. From there, we would work with the brokers or the insurance piece to select benefits, review eligibility, communicate it to the employees, and do an enrollment. It would take between 10 to 15 minutes per employee to enroll in this benefit, and know that through all coordination, we have the ability for self-enrollment, online enrollment, application on the phone, application on the website, over the phone, self-assisted, my spouse on a Zoom, or in person. We have it all, right? But after the enrollment's complete, we do a quick payroll implementation call with either a bookkeeper or a dedicated service rep from the payroll company. And like all other benefits, the program is simply on autopilot, where the only time you ever revisit it after it's put into payroll is if somebody is fired, somebody is hired, or somebody is put on disability. But with that, I'll leave my screen up, but I pass it to anybody in the meeting for questions or questions in the chat. Thank you all for your time. And Christy, I really appreciate the chamber helping or allowing us this presentation. I see another question from Lauren actually in the chat. Who or what? Okay, so who or what organizations have access to the data that's calculated? So Lauren, for in the application, The data that's calculated, we are high-tech certified, and it's all need to know HIPAA protected information. The employer can have access to the information delineated from the name if they wanted to know any aggregate data on the average height and weight of an employee or risk scores, right? But the only professionals that have access to whether it's MIB diagnosis or any prescriptions data are the medical professionals that are rendering care for the person at the time of care. And then I think the second part here, how come this window's, oh, the second, do the algorithms used to make the health assessment take into account race? So race, ethnicity, family history, and then also there's geographical, where you grew up, and SMOG ratings are coming into play for our health assessments. So we do have a lot of kind of interoperable things that might come into play to help understand a finite tool for that person to be healthier in one spot.
Thanks, Cody. That was a great presentation.
I actually have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. So you don't do health insurance.
So health insurance is a requirement to have. You must either have it through your employer, through your spouse's employer, or through the exchange. That through the exchange tidbit was added in 2021 to the code, so that's new. But you cannot have Medicaid. I don't know what it's called in Maryland, if it's just state Medicaid or fee-for-service Medicaid. I'm not too sure what they call it there. But you cannot have Medicaid, something that would be considered income-based or under 138% of the Medicaid expansion. But we are not health insurance. We are kind of like the sidecar, right?
So you're just bringing in this, like this is a wellness type benefit, right?
Right, a supplemental wellness benefit.
So keep up that screen. So I decide to participate. I put in is that $184 per pay?
Correct.
But then they give it back to me.
Absolutely. The employee they sign a salary election and commitment form, which they attest to completing the 4 wellness activities for the year.
But
Matt,
what if they don't do those 4?
Perfect. That's where I was going with it, is in that disclosure, there's a presumptive eligibility for the reimbursement, meaning that much like even presumptive eligibility for Medicaid, like I said, if they deem you Medicaid eligible for 1 day, you can get it for 365. That's covered by federal law. Same thing in the plan document. If you enroll in the plan, you are substantiating the reimbursement from day 1, knowing that you are going to do the 4 wellness activities required by the plan document. If you do not do the 4 wellness activities, all of this reimbursement that happened throughout the year will be handed right back to you in a W-2 amendment by us, meaning that all that tax savings would essentially been then now taxable income. I will share that out of our 75,000 people enrolled, though, we had 1 employee last year that we had to deliver that letter to.
Okay. And then if they wanted to get, like I do supplemental benefits through Aflac.
Mhm.
If with that savings, they wanted to buy a cancer plan, do they have to go through your company?
There's coordination with the broker that's involved already. More often than not, we don't necessarily want to pillage the current benefits environment so much as try and bring it into one cohesive atmosphere. But I mean,
Right.
It's all, we know how the broker atmosphere works. I mean, I prefer one BOR that takes care of it all, but every once in a while, there's multiple brokers that take care of multiple things. But on the Aflac side of things, yes, they could use a portion of this money to pay for Aflac policies, pay for Allstate policies, pay for Transamerica policies, etc.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt covered one of my questions. You had mentioned doing the 4 things. I wanted to make sure that was 4 per year and not like monthly. So that's good to know. The other question about that is, do the employees get reminders to complete these things throughout the year?
Absolutely. So when the employee fills out that salary election commitment form, they attest to also communication. So we communicate with the employee 7 to 10 times a year, email, text message, phone call. We have their email address. Each individual employee gets a copy of our monthly newsletter. The monthly newsletter is cheeky enough to always have a nice recipe, a video about the application, and kind of like to kind of pump a wellness activity that's kind of a hot topic, equal to the month, like colorectal screening month in March, right? The importance of colon health, mental health awareness month in June, the importance of mental health, like little things like that in their communications. But if the employee installs the Health Compass application on their phone, the push notification is the most magical thing ever, right? So we're able to really get kind of engagements with the employee that are tasteful and not bothersome.
Great, thank you. What other questions do we have from our guests? I know I am most excited to be able to provide another staff benefit so we can arrange for our staff to have extra supplemental benefits without having a cost to the employer that we need to budget for. So that's exciting to me. Let's see. We have a few folks on here.
Yeah, I was just keeping an eye on the chat.
Okay. Well, it doesn't seem like we have any other questions popping up, but I'm sure if anybody thinks of a question after the program, you can certainly reach out to me, Cody. John is here on the call also. And following this program, everyone who registered will get an email from us with their contact information. So if you have another question you come up with later, you can certainly always ask. Okay, last chance. If we have no other questions, we'll give everybody back a couple minutes to their afternoon. But thank you so much, Cody. That was a great presentation. I have read so much about this so far as we began this partnership, but I feel like I learn something new every time we chat. So thank you to all of our guests for joining us, and thank you again for the great presentation. And again, we'll follow up with everybody after the meeting so you have this video presentation as well as our contact information. So thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. Enjoy. Thanks,
Bye.